Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video. My name is Dr. Ray, and today we're going to be doing a pet food review, a pet food analysis. For those of you that are new, my name is Dr. Ray. I'm a small animal general practitioner. I have this channel where I answer pet-related questions. And many years ago, those questions, for some reason, started to evolve into nutrition questions. And so today we're going to be evaluating a food based on some guidelines that are established in the textbook Small Animal Clinical Nutrition. That textbook gives some published data as to the theorized perfect ideal range for pet food parameters that you should be looking for when you evaluate pet foods for your pet. So just a bit of ground rules. We're going to be using the pet food scoring system. It is a methodical approach that I developed to help eliminate some of the noise and the fuss and the bustle that is starting to creep its way into pet food nutrition. If you're not familiar with that scoring system, I will link the video that teaches you how to use it. And if you're interested in learning more, I have compiled a workbook that will also go through the steps and the necessary information and the parameters and how to do things, calculate things further. If you're more interested, you can check out that book on my website. So today we're going to be revisiting a food, and that is Carna4. So Carna4, I did a video on it probably several years ago now, and it is one of my most watched videos. It is also one of my most commented and most not rage bait, but like rage inducing videos. Apparently the people that are Carna4 followers are very passionate about this food, which I'm happy about. Now, with that said, if we go through the review, which we're going to be doing here shortly, we're going to be doing all of their foods. If we go through the review and it scores lower than what you anticipated, it does not mean that you are a bad person. It does not mean that the food is bad. It does not mean anything. We are just simply assigning numbers so that you can know what range this food is in. If you know the range and you are fine with it, then that's fine. This review is to show people what you are looking for, and then you make a decision, okay? And so if you make a decision that maybe is different than somebody else's, that's fine. You don't need to come for me. You don't need to come for me in the comments. I am just pointing out a few things and clarifying some information that maybe some of the viewers aren't aware of so that they can make an informed decision. That is all we are doing. I am not making a recommendation. I am not telling you you are doing good. I am not telling you you are doing bad. I am simply showing you where to find the information. So just setting those bit of ground rules, because for whatever reason, people that are followers of this food seem to get aggravated, with the information that will be coming forth. So we're going to be doing all the diets. If you want, you can go ahead and follow me to carna4.com. It is a Canadian company. They use whole foods. That is their shtick. They are synthetic free. You can see that on the top here. And they say, and this is, again, I'm going to part out, point of this process is realizing what is marketing and what is reality. So I'm going to be pointing those things out to you, whether you know them or not. You may already know them, but for those of us that don't, I'm going to be sharing this with you. Great for itchy pets. Any food can put any claim, almost any claim they want. They can't put a claim to cure a disease, so they can't say cures atopic dermatitis, cures food allergy. They can't put that, but they can allude to the fact that they think that their diet has something in it that is great for itchy pets. As a veterinarian, that is a little bit subject. They don't know why your pet is itchy. Maybe your pet does have a food allergy. But the reality of that situation, and there's data to substantiate this, you can check out my food allergy video, less than 5% of the population, okay? So very rare food allergies, despite media and the perception that you may have, less than 5% of the population has a food allergy. So very insignificant amount. If your pet is itchy and it has a flea allergy, this will do nothing. If your pet is itchy because it has an immune condition like hypothyroidism, Cushing's disease, pemphigus foliaceus, this will do nothing for it, okay? So when it says something like great for itchy pets, realize what that really is and realize and appreciate that for the marketing that it is, and not for the substance that's in the package, okay? This food is quick bake, air dried, and safety tested. There's an asterisk there. We can look to see what that asterisk means. But if you're trying to get away from the extruded, you're trying to get away from some of these other formulations, and that is your fancy, this food may be something that you've been interested in. Now they've got several products here. We're going to go through all of them, minus the like treats and things like that. We're going to stick with the foods. I will not be doing cat today because I have a whole separate video that addresses this singular cat diet that Carna4 has to offer. What are the differences? Their main thing is that they do use these fresh whole ingredients to formulate their foods, and that another big thing that they tout is that they are synthetic free, meaning they don't add any additional vitamin packs or anything like that to their formulations to get the final formula. They do have some other information, and again, I went through this more in my original video, which I will post here. There is some information that they give that is a little bit maybe not mainstream and a little bit subject to actual anatomy and physiology of the animal that I do not agree with. But that you can review that first video if you want to get more into that. So let's get into the diets. We've pointed out a bit of the marketing things already. We're going to start here with the Carna4 Lamb Easy Bake. I'm going to go through the website for this one, and then I have created and compiled a chart that shows all the diets, and we're going to go through that chart. That chart will be available on my website if you want to download it and have it for your personal use. And so at the end of this video, we will give the links to download that chart as well. So what the Easy Chew diets are they are slightly smaller and slightly softer nuggets. So if you have a pet that prefers that type of texture, that might be something that you're looking for. Now, I will say I have nothing wrong with the texture. Many years ago, we thought hard food was better for teeth. We know that that's not the case. Maybe it is, but just marginally so. And so some dogs do better with different textures, and so this may be a benefit. If you have a dog that does need that softer texture for digestion, maybe they have a hypomotility disorder and they just do better with a softer texture, I will caution you from switching to a softer texture because your pet has dental disease. So just the other day, I had a dog come in for a physical exam that was not doing well, and there was a lot of things to sift through. There were a lot of diet changes, there were a lot of supplements, there were a lot of muddying the water factors that were happening, and I asked, each one, why did you do this? What was the symptom that made you do this? And one of the ones was they changed to a soft diet because the dog had a cracked tooth. Okay, well, the solution to that is to fix the cracked tooth. The solution is not to change the diet, because that then snowballed into many more conditions. And so nothing wrong with a soft baked chewy texture, but do not use it to mitigate another condition that may need to actually be medically addressed. And so this is going to be a lamb formula. It is pasteurized New Zealand lamb, and they've got a couple other ingredients that we'll go over in a minute. Now, we're going to go through the website. So let's just go ahead and go through the ingredients on this one. So the ingredients are lamb liver, eggs, ground organic sprouted barley. So it's a grain inclusive diet. So that makes me happy. We're not going to go into, again, grain free and the concerns with the pulses and how the pulses kind of manipulate, or the overuse of pulses manipulate the amino acid profiles, which then can result in taurine deficiency, which then can result in DCM. Not going to go through all that. That's just a little snapshot on it. I still get people to this date in the comments saying that there's no such thing as issues with grain-free. There's no such, DCM is not a thing. It 100% is a thing. I don't know why people say that. Yes, we don't know everything about it, but yes, it absolutely is a thing, and we don't have to worry about that with this food. So that is a plus for me. So as we go through the pet food scoring system, they're going to get a point because we don't even have to worry about that. That's not even a worry in our mind. The other thing that's not a worry in our mind is any health risk that may occur because the food is cooked. So it's not raw, so we don't have to worry about the myriad of things that occur with a raw diet. So they will get 2 points for this ingredient list with the pet food scoring system. They've also got some ground whole brown rice in there, sprouted flaxseed. All the ingredients look really good. We do get some lentils in there and the sweet potato. Those are legumes. So again, and the peas and the potato starch, if that's being overused in this diet, we can see some issues, but because we have grains, the chances of them being overused and causing that amino acid mismatch is not likely to occur. Apples, carrots, sea kelp, baking soda, and nothing else. So you can see they do not use any of the synthetics that a lot of people are worried about. And so now we're going to get into the nutritional makeup of this food, and this is where we are going to have to implore some math. I did email the company to try to get a little bit more information to mitigate having to use math, and I was not able to get a clear answer on anything. They just kept referring me back to the website saying everything you need is on the website, and I kept on saying no, it's not. That's not really everything that we need. So the customer service was quite a bit lacking there, but we're going to do the best that we can with what is available, and I will show you how to do it. So first thing that we're looking at here is the AAFCO statement. AAFCO is I think it stands for the American Association of Feed Control Officials. And so a lot of people mistakenly think that AAFCO is a nutrition, nutrition, they're the nutrition police. AAFCO are not the nutrition police. AAFCO are the labeling police, okay? So they make sure that pet food is labeled in a way that is supposed to be not deceptive, is supposed to be transparent, and that they meet minimum requirements. They are not the nutrition police because they do not care about upper levels or an appropriate range. They simply just want to make sure that the label is clear and concise and that it is standardized, okay? And so as we go through this, we are not going to be using AAFCO's levels because a lot of AAFCO's levels do not even incorporate an upper limit. And so, as you know, there are a lot of things where there is an appropriate range. There's many things in life where there is an appropriate range. You can't have too much. You don't want too little. You want something that is ideal and appropriate. And that is what we are shooting for using this chart here from Small Animal Clinical Nutrition. Full text linked in the description box below if you want to read more about where those numbers come from, but this is the ideal range. Yes, animals can still live. Animals will not drop dead if they are not in this range. So again, if you choose a food that is not in this range, does not make you a bad person, does not mean that your pet is going to drop dead. It may mean there are additional steps that you need to take and additional responsibilities that you may need to take if you're not in this range, but it doesn't mean any of those things that you guys come for me, not all of you, but the ones of you that don't need to come for me in the comments, okay? It is the range that we're going to be using. So back to this statement. AAFCO nutrient profiles substantiate that this food is appropriate for all life stages. That is a point off right there. And why is it a point off? It's a point off because they are not being serious about nutrition to the point where they are actually tailoring a food to a pet's specific life stage. And so we know that the nutrients that are required for a tiny little puppy, and this just makes sense, the nutrients required for optimal growth of that little puppy are not going to be the same as a 10, 11, 12-year-old dog, and are not going to be the same for a 6, 7-year-old dog, not going to be the same for a 1, 2, 3, 4-year-old dog. Okay, and so if you just think about it at a basic level, that makes no sense. AAFCO allows it. Again, they allow it for labeling, so they allow a food to be formulated to meet the minimums for all those life stages, which means it must meet the minimum for puppy because puppy requires the most nutrients, the most calcium, the most phosphorus, the most protein. But the most for a puppy is not appropriate for a larger animal. It's too much. It taxes the system. The system has to process that. And, I get a lot of comments as well. Well, so what? They don't need it. They'll just urinate or defecate it out. Well, yes, they will. Exactly. That's exactly what will happen. A, they're urinating and defecating out money because this food's not cheap in comparison to some of the other ones. And B, that process requires energy and requires the organs to do that. So you are unnecessarily overusing them. And if you already have a pet that maybe has a weakened immune system, has some degree of liver dysfunction, as happens with age naturally, some degree of kidney function, as happens with age naturally, you may be exacerbating that process for no reason. And so all life stage foods are a marketing thing. They allow a food to make one food and sell it to many, 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 many different animals and many, many, many different times of their life, okay? It is not optimal for nutrition. It is optimal for their business model, and it is allowed, but it is not ideal. And so wanted to point that out. They will not be getting points for that because, as you will see as we move through this food, just because it is optimal potentially for a puppy almost always means that it is inappropriately or not optimal for an adult or a senior. So they are going to lose points there, and then they are also not going to get any points because the foods are not feeding trial. These foods were formulated. They came up with a formula, and we will see this as well. They came up with a formula, and they just made all the foods meet the formula. They did not feed these to animals to make sure that the calcium levels did not become falsely elevated. They didn't, the kidney levels were fine. They did not develop anemia or anything like that. So they are going to lose two points there. Here are the nutrient profiles that they have. Now, Carna4 is very proud that they exceed the recommended ranges. So it says here that the AFCO food nutrient profiles for all life stages, but offers much more. In fact, our nutrient content exceeds AFCO requirements in all cases. And so why do they do that? Do they do that because they just think more is better? That is potentially true. But the reality of the situation is they likely do it because AFCO does not set very many maximum numbers. And we'll see that as we look through the nutrient profile. They list a lot of minimums. And so it is easier to not have an upper limit and just blast it, not having to worry about actually hitting the mark, okay? So think of a dartboard. The game of darts is not, do we just, hit the board or hit the space behind the board, or any type of shooting sport, archery, riflery, anything like that isn't just you just hit the background and you get a point. The most points are the closer and closer and closer and closer you get to the bullseye, right? So when a company just shoots and they pat themselves on the back that they just hit the backstop, that's not necessarily the best thing. We want a company that is trying hard to get to that bullseye. And so keep that in mind as, we're going through this food and they're saying, well, we just exceed. Well, that's kind of lazy. They've worded it and they've spun it a way that makes it sound good, but more isn't better. It takes a lot more finesse and a lot more energy to actually tailor the food to where the optimal levels lie. And so here you can see lamb is a minimum. We don't know what the maximum is. The percent crude protein 29, fat 15, fiber 4, which they are listing. Some of them they will list a max, so they don't want a food to be over filled with fiber, because then they may be sliding the consumer. They've just put a bunch of fiber in there. Moisture is 10% max. That's going to be because it is a dry food, so there's only 10% moisture maximum in there, and that allows us to do the calculations that we're going to have to do here in a minute. They do list some additional nutrient profiles here, and again, this is going to be a minimum per kilogram as fed. The problem with as fed is it includes that 10% moisture, so these numbers are going to be slightly off by 10%, and so there were some calculations that we needed to do to convert that to a dry matter basis. There is a dedicated video on doing that. It is also in this workbook. If you want to learn how to do that and you don't want to trust me, you want to do it yourself, it is in my workbook as well, step-by-step process. Otherwise, I've already done that, and that's going to be in the chart we are going to see here in a minute. As we continue down here, I will give them some props on something down here. So they are not using the synthetic vitamin pack. This is one of the first foods that I have seen that has quite a decent amount of like vitamin E without using a vitamin pack. So definitely kudos to them for that. They got the vitamin E to 360 international units, which is quite impressive. A lot of foods are, sticking the token 50 in there because the minimum is 45. So I do think that they did really focus on that non-synthetic thing. But as we go through it, I would have liked them to, again, the same detail they put in that passion for non-synthetics and getting the vitamin values up with non-synthetics. I wish they had put that same energy into balancing the diet for optimal nutrition a little bit better. They've got some probiotics in there. I'm not a big fan of probiotics just randomly added to a food. They don't even list which ones are in there. You can check out my video on prebiotics and probiotics to understand why just simply putting microorganisms is of no use. We need to know exactly which ones are in there because the type of microorganisms is important. So the fact that they just put microorganisms there shows that they are not paying attention to detail on what is actually important. They're just probably putting those in there for marketing to say that they put probiotics in the food. Prebiotics are important. Those are the fibers that feed the microorganisms, so that's a good thing. Digestive enzymes, not really necessary to add to the food unless your pet is deficient. And so here, questions about feeding all life stage diet to your puppy, and here you can read about their information on that, but I believe I looked at that and the information they gave was not absolutely accurate. I believe they said that if you over supplement calcium and phosphorus, no worries, it's just stored in the blood. And that is absolutely not correct, but do check my earlier video for some critiques on that incorrect information. And then we have the feeding guide, and I did some calculations to ensure that they are recommending that you feed your dog appropriately, and there are points to be had for that. And then that's about it. So let's hop over to the nice concise chart that I made. It's going to go through all of these, so I think that is going to be easier and more straightforward for all of you guys to see. All right, so this chart was compiled yesterday. So it was actually compiled on May 27th, 2025. So if you're watching this video many, many years in the future, welcome, to the past. And you always want to make sure that they have not made changes to their formula. And that the information hasn't changed. But as of today, this is the information that was available on the Carna4 website for their Easy Chew lamb, Easy Chew goat, Easy Chew venison, Easy Chew fish, their chicken, and their duck formula. So as we look at this chart and we go through the diets, you're going to see a pattern here. And this is very common of a lot of pet food companies, especially ones that have formulated a diet. They come up with a formula, and then they put that in a computer, and then the computer tells them how much of the ingredients to add to meet that formula. And that formula is probably, you'd have to call them and you'd have to try to get in touch with their nutritionist or whoever formulated their food. I don't know who did it. Good luck if you want to try to get that information. But they come up with this formula and then they put it in a computer, and so you will see that here. All their foods, all of them were all life stages. So there is not a single food that is specifically for a puppy or specifically for a senior or specifically for an adult. When you look at the package, it says whole food nuggets for dogs, which makes in your mind, it enlists that idea that this is for adult dogs, and certainly you can feed it to an adult dog, but it may not be ideal for the adult dog because it is going to also meet the nutrient requirements for a puppy. Essentially, it is a puppy food. All of these essentially are puppy foods, and you're going to see that as we go through the nutrient panel. None of these diets were grain-free except for the duck, and you can see the red parameters are the ones where points are going to be deducted in the pet food scoring system. None of these diets were raw. They were all the oven-baked or slow-baked diet. And then we have our feeding guidelines here. All the foods did recommend that you feed the appropriate amount of food. when I'm going through the foods, I always check the kcals per cup, and I always check the metabolizable energy, because that does affect the numbers in the calculations. And so you will see as we go further, the numbers here are not the numbers on the website, because I have done that dry matter basis conversion. You have to do that. If you are new into pet food, you are new into pet food nutrition, and you're new into being a pet food nutrition enthusiast, you must learn to convert to a dry matter basis. If you have watched other channels and they're telling you just look at the guaranteed analysis, they are not at that next level actual nutrition training that you need. You need to be able to do that, or you need to be able to feel confident calling the company and asking for dry matter basis. Now, I did that for Carna4 and they did not give it to me, so I had to do the conversion. But again, in this workbook, it will teach you to do that, or you can also watch this video that I will have linked in the description box to learn how to do that. So these numbers are not going to match, because I have done the conversions for you, and I have also accounted, at least in the duck, for the metabolizable energy. And so important note, and you'll see that that is notated here at the bottom of the chart as well. But as far as the feeding and the calories go, all of them are around 400 to 500 kcals per cup, and they all checked out and recommending on the package how much to feed. Again, you can do those calculations yourself, and there are various tutorials here and on my website on how to do that. Now, we have the established numbers for adult. We're going to use those established numbers for adult because this food is eluding on the package, in my opinion. And if you read the package differently, leave a comment down below and say, Dr. Ray, you're way off base. Of course, I knew this was a puppy food. But to me, it looked like it was an adult food. And so we're going to be using the adult numbers. Now, as you look at all of them in totality, which we might as well do, because usually I go one by one, but Carna4 has formulated all their foods almost exactly the same. Exactly. They are all the same. So the reason for having all these different flavors a lot of times is just marketing, okay? Because nutritionally, they're all the same. They are not changing the nutritional profile to meet the different needs of different animals. The nutritional profiles, they are the same. They all have 32% minimum protein, which is in excess, could be more, we don't know. The upper level there for an adult is around 30 ideal range. Now, is it a big deal if they're over in protein? No, there is some literature to suggest that higher protein can be beneficial in maintaining muscle mass as pets become seniors and their muscles start to deteriorate. And so this channel, I'm a practicing veterinarian, okay? I practice multiple, like regular work schedule, 40 hours, 50 hours, whatever a week. So I see patients and I am still a practicing veterinarian. So the information I am giving you is coming from a clinical nutrition standpoint, okay? So there's a difference between nutritional research and clinical nutrition. Nutritional research lives in the realm of the ideal, the laboratory setting, the white room setting. I am coming from a clinical, real world application, how things are in reality, okay? Not how things are in the ideal setting. Because we don't live in an ideal setting, right? We live in reality. And so in the ideal setting, higher protein may, according to some research, benefit your pet as they age. The problem with that is they are not taking into account, they are simply looking at muscle mass and weight. They're not taking into account the natural aging that occurs that we see clinically in reality as pets age, and how that excessive amount of protein can affect the kidneys and put pets into a potentially deleterious state with the kidneys and excess protein and excess minerals that come with excess protein. And so yes, in the lab setting where maybe these animals are getting blood work every 3 months and you catch that kidney disease early, you can make the change to a low protein or moderate protein diet. But in reality, you guys aren't doing that, and I'm not doing that. I don't check my dog's blood every 3 months. I don't even check my dog's blood every 6 months. I check my dog's blood once a year, or if they're sick. And you guys do that too, and a lot of you do it even less than that because it's not in the budget, or whatever reason, just not possible. And so it is something that you can do. You can walk that line, you can toe that line, but that is one of those things where you have to also, if you read that research and you're like, I believe high protein is better, I truly in my heart believe high protein is better, that's fine, and the data does suggest that, and I'm not going to tell you that's wrong. But I'm also going to tell you that in reality, clinically, you need to be watching your pet's kidney levels, because if you don't make that change in a timely fashion to the lower protein or the more moderate protein, you're going to be then hurting your pet. And that isn't what you wanted to do. And so that's what I'm telling you. If you choose to feed a diet that is higher in protein, higher than the recommended range, you have that extra responsibility to be monitoring that. If you choose to feed a moderate protein diet, which we have data to suggest that dogs do absolutely fine with, that is something you no longer have to worry about. There's some reasonable caution. Of course, we always want you to do blood work that once a year, but you don't have to be as meticulous about it as if you were choosing to feed outside of the recommended ranges. So all of these diets are in excess. That was fine for all of these diets. They were all 16.6%. Calcium was elevated in all of these diets, ranging from 1.4 to 1.7. And usually when the calcium is elevated, the phosphorus is elevated as well. And so you can see those elevations, in likewise fashion. Now, why is that the case? It's the case because this is a puppy food, and puppies do require more calcium and phosphorus. And so in order to meet those calcium phosphorus for the puppy and label this as all life stages, and because there is no, there is an upper limit, but it's super duper high. They have done that, and they can label it as all life stages. Fiber was fine at all of them at 4.4. And so when you go through and you add up all the points, every single one of these foods scores a 5 out of 10. And so what does that mean? It means we're missing on some major nutrient things. We had the first warning sign because it was all life stages, meaning for an adult, it's not going to be ideal, most likely. We overshot that protein, so there's a little bit of extra work that needs to be done if you choose to feed this food to your pet. And then the calcium phosphorus levels as well. As the protein levels go up, those protein sources have calcium and phosphorus, you're going to have extra calcium and phosphorus unless the company has really taken and made the effort to bring those calcium phosphorus levels down with their processing. Carnivore did not choose to do that. And so this food ends up scoring a 5 out of 10, no matter which one you feed. The lamb, the goat, the venison, the fish. Why would you choose one over the other? I don't know. That's personal preference. They have diversified and give you many options because that's good marketing. The more options they give, the bigger net they cast, the more fish they're going to catch, so to speak. And so some people will say, well, I choose lamb because my or goat or venison or fish because my pet has a chicken allergy. Well, this company also makes chicken. And so this is not a food trial appropriate food. And so a lot of people will say that as well. And then I had another comment where, you can't just say that. Some companies, pay a lot of time and a lot of effort to really process and clean, clean their equipment. And so, you can't say that the chicken doesn't cross-contaminate with the lamb. I'm telling you from a clinical standpoint, yes, theoretically they may do that, but from a clinical standpoint, time and time again, in dermatologists, board certified dermatologists, you cannot use an over-the-counter food for a food trial. It is not diagnostic, okay? So just know that as well. If you are feeding this food because you're saying, well, I needed a lamb food because my pet is allergic to goat, venison, fish, chicken, pork, whatever, this food is not really appropriate for that either. So again, the diversification of the portfolio is more of a marketing thing, most likely to cast a large net. You are absolutely welcome to email the company and ask them if they can certify that there is no cross-contamination. If anybody has done that and can report back to me, that would be wonderful. But given the interactions that I had with them, I just really don't think you are going to be able to get that information. So here is the carnivore, in totality. It's not a review. It is an analysis so that you guys know where this food stands. I am not telling you to not feed this food. I am not your veterinarian. I am not making anybody do anything. I am simply laying the information out there for you to then make a decision for yourself. Me personally, if it scores below a 7, there are some significant deductions that I am worried about. I would rather pick a food that has some of the qualities that you like, that actually does that and meets the nutritional mark. But once you're informed and you make a decision, that is up to you. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the process, because that's what it is about. It is about learning a process. I hope that you will take this chart and use it to compare to some of my other charts, so you can see how foods are compared to one another. You can get this chart on my website. And I have some other foods we're going to be doing shortly using this same method. So I hope you guys like and subscribe, and we will hang out again real soon.